We are on the fifth presentation. And this afternoon, the title of our presentation is At the Plain of Dura. Well, most of you must have heard what happened at the plain of Dura, but there are some who might have not heard what happened at the plains of Dura. And for that reason, this afternoon rather, we are going to go through the plains of Dura. Nebuchadnezzar had dreamt a dream. And somehow Daniel has given the meaning and the interpretation of the dream to the king Nebuchadnezzar. And there are words which are tormenting Nebuchadnezzar. When Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar, "After thee shall come another kingdom." So Nebuchadnezzar goes to bed, and somehow after thee comes to his mind. And he's not happy about this. You mean after the golden kingdom there will be another kingdom? Do you mean Babylon will not last forever? Nebuchadnezzar is disturbed. And as a result, he attempts to make Babylon last forever. He decides to build an image. And he decides to make this image not only the head of gold, but he makes it the all of it of gold, meaning Babylon will be from top to bottom. There is no end for Babylon. The Bible says in Daniel 3 verse 1, the Bible says, Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. You remember, when we went through Daniel 2, we reached a stage where after Nebuchadnezzar has been given the meaning of the dream, he acknowledges God. He says in Daniel 2 verse 47, to the king answered unto Daniel and said, of a truth it is that your God is a God of gods, and a Lord of kings, and revealer of secrets, seeing thou couldest reveal this secret. So after Daniel tells Nebuchadnezzar there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, Nebuchadnezzar acknowledges God, and he says there is no any other God but the God of Daniel. There is no any other God but Yahweh. But long after King Nebuchadnezzar acknowledging the God of heaven, suddenly he seemed to have forgotten what he had acknowledged. And now he's building an idol, making it, all of it, to be Babylon. I want to submit to you this afternoon that what Nebuchadnezzar had gone through is that he had knowledge. Nebuchadnezzar has seen the workings of God. Nebuchadnezzar has been revealed on how God reveals secrets and no any other God. But unfortunately, the king only has a heard knowledge. Just like many this afternoon who have been convicted of workings of God, who have been convicted of the prophecies of God. We can tell numbers. We can detect and decode prophecies. But just like King Nebuchadnezzar, the knowledge has ended here. The knowledge has not gone down to affect the life of King Nebuchadnezzar. We can tell you exactly what you need to eat and what you don't need to eat. We can tell you how long or your dress should be. And we can tell you what type of makeup you shouldn't or you should put on. We can quote spirit of prophecy quotations. But just like King Nebuchadnezzar, the knowledge has not gone down to the heart. I want to submit to you this afternoon. The head knowledge without a Christian experience is dangerous. Those who acquire knowledge without an experience with God will become lethal to the advancements of the work of God. Those who only have the head knowledge will become lethal, not only to the advancement of God's work, but also lethal to God's children. The spirit of prophecy tells us, in the book The Great Controversy, we are told, as the storm approaches, a large class who have professed faith in the third angel's message, but have not been sanctified through obedience to the truth, abandon their position and join the ranks of the opposition. They become the most bitter enemies of their former brethren. Just like King Nebuchadnezzar, we will have Seventh-day Adventists and other Christians acquiring knowledge, reading Genesis to Revelation, but then it ends here. They have not allowed the knowledge to change them. Now we are told these will become the most bitter enemies of God's children, turning against us, becoming our bitter enemies. So we see King Nebuchadnezzar making an image and enforcing the people to worship it. The Bible says in Daniel 3 verse 2, then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. After getting the meaning of the dream, Nebuchadnezzar shares what Daniel told him to his wise men. And the wise men somehow advanced him. He said, you know, the way to make Babylon last forever is you make this image of gold and make it Babylon, all of it. Well, there are some historians who have said that there was commotion at the palace. Somehow the leaders wanted to revolt against Nebuchadnezzar, and Nebuchadnezzar was advised to make an image so that he can command obedience to everyone. So the king makes the image. And they say, the king, live forever, O King Nebuchadnezzar, and may your kingdom also live forever. And he calls anybody who was somebody in Babylon, or anybody who was anybody in Babylon. And they're all gathered at the plains of Dura. He calls the government at the plains of Dura. He calls the church at the plains of Dura. And everybody is settled there for worship. The Bible says in verse 4 of the same chapter, verse 4, the Bible says, then an Herod cried aloud, to you it is commanded, O people, nations, and language. Verse 5, that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, plastery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, you fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. We are told the 4 Hebrew boys could sing. They had beautiful voices. And somehow the Babylonian priests were asking them to sing. And every time the Babylonian priests would go to Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, Ananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, and Daniel, who later on will be named Belteshazzar, these men would be refusing to sing. So we cannot sing. Could you sing for us? We cannot sing. Why? We cannot sing in Babylon. And this brought commotion, and this brought frustration to Babylonian priests, and now they were looking for an opportunity to get them. Now you remember Psalms 137 verse 1. When they look back, this is what the Bible says. By the rivers of Babylon there we sat. Yeah, we wept when we remembered Zion. Verse 2. We hanged our harps upon the willows in the midst thereof. For they that carried us captive required of us a song, and they that wasted us require for us a myth, saying, sing us one of those songs of Zion. And they say, how shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? They refuse to sing. This is a good counsel to even the youth today, singing Babylonian songs. How can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? They refuse to sing. What type of music do we listen to? What type of music do we allow to be played in our houses? What type of music do we expose the younger ones in? So when this image was set up, they were going to see what these mutilated prisoners of war are going to do. And they all came. But you know, Nebuchadnezzar is troubled with the prophecy. As I said, one thing is in his mind, after thee, after thee, after thee. So he tries to change the prophecy, to make it go his way. But not only changing prophecy, King Nebuchadnezzar also tries to change the law. You remember when God said, thou shalt not bow down yourself to any image or idol worship. So Nebuchadnezzar is not only changing the law, he's also trying to change prophecies, which means to change times. The Bible tells us, in your day and my day, the same will be repeated. The little horn, which we have already established as a papal Rome, the Roman Catholic papacy, we are told is going to do the same as Nebuchadnezzar and force people to worship the sun on a day of the sun, but also to change prophecies. The Bible says in Daniel 7, verse 25, the Bible says, speaking of the little horn, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. So apart from Nebuchadnezzar, there is a power that is coming to do exactly the way Nebuchadnezzar did. Will think to change times and laws, forcing people to worship the sun. But did you know that this power already attempted to change times and laws? In 1500s, when God was stirring up Reformation under Martin Luther and other reformers, this power also rose two men, used two men to change the prophecies, to try to change the prophecies, to try to change times. The first man was Francisco Ribera, who lived from 1537 to 1591. Francisco Ribera came with the idea of futurism, and he went ahead teaching that all the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation are for the future. But he also taught preterism, saying everything is in the past, with an attempt to hide the identity of Roman Catholic papacy. Not only that, there was another man called Cardinal Bellarmine. And this man, what he did is he took the ideas of Francisco Ribera, organized them, and started going from great theological schools, teaching the ideas of futurism and preterism. And that's why theologians today, those who teach theology, they all believe in the future manifestation of the Antichrist. The pastors and evangelists and religious leaders were all being bombarded with teachings of futurism and preterism, with an attempt to change times, as the Bible refers to times as prophecies. And that's why today you hear a commotion in Christendom where people still are waiting for the Antichrist who will be enthroned in Jerusalem. And they're working towards rebuilding of the temple. Why? Because Francisco Ribera and Cardinal Bellarmine, they took these ideas and went ahead and started teaching people. And unfortunately, that is why even in Adventist church, you hear seldom sermons about Antichrist. I, for one, had a meeting with one pastor somewhere, and I was told that that Antichrist is not now. It will come in the future. So this teaching is not only to the Protestants, it's also coming slowly to Adventist church. Why? Because of these teachings that were exposed to, especially to our pastors and evangelists and religious leaders. And they're saying that the Antichrist will come just before the end of the world. And the teaching says the Antichrist will be enthroned in the temple in Jerusalem. And that's why I think that America is so much concerned with Israel. Because they all believe somehow the Antichrist will have to be. That's why you also have commotion between Islam and Christianity. Everybody is trying to fight for Jerusalem. Therefore, it was fulfilled in 1500s that, and he shall think to change times, means he shall think to change prophecies, and also laws, forcing people to worship idols and to do away with the Sabbath. So Nebuchadnezzar makes an image of gold, calling everyone, every leader in his realm, to come and worship the sun. Daniel 3 verse 5, the Bible says, Daniel 3 verse 5, the Bible says, that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, the flute, the harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king hath set up. At this time, we are not told where Daniel is. The only thing we are told that Daniel is not there. And we don't want to try to be more precise than the Bible. You remember, after this disappointment of 1844, Ellen White would write to A.T. Jones and ask him, why are you trying to be more precise than the Bible? If the Bible is silent, the Bible is silent. At times we try to dig more deeper than the Bible has disclosed. So we are told Daniel is not there. You know, I was thinking of why is Daniel not there. So this is just my thinking and my reasoning. I thought maybe Nebuchadnezzar took Daniel somewhere because he knows Daniel will not bow down. Maybe he doesn't want Daniel to influence the other three boys. And that's why Daniel is not there. That's my thinking. And he knows if Daniel is not there, these 4 Hebrew boys will bow down. These 3 Hebrew boys will bow down. How many of us are able to stand on our own? How many of us are able to stand when Daniel is not there? How many of us will be able to do that which we know is right to be done? Even when we have to stand on our own. There are some of us who will become vegetarian depending on who we are eating with. When I eat with a church member, I will say, give me that tofu. But when I'm on my own, my diet changes. How many of us are Adventists depending on who we are walking with? And if you are alone, when you are alone, you say, now this is my time. You do your thing. Or with your colleagues. How many of us dares to become or to continue being Adventist even at work? When Daniel is not there. How many of us are wearing masks? And this is called hitchhiking religion. I heard a story of a man who was called to chair a meeting, a reconciliation meeting between 2 parties. So the first party called, and this man, he was sitting here, and the secretary not sitting very far from him. So the other party called, and they spoke to him, and they laid their case to him. And everything this man was saying, you are right. Yes, you are right. Oh, you are right. Actually, you are right. Yes, you are right. You are right, my dear. You are right in this. The secretary is listening. Oh, you are right, my dear. I think you are right. You are seeing it very correct. Yes, I think you are right. And then after this party hangs up the phone, coincidentally, the other party also calls to lay their case. And then this man picks up the phone again. He has heard the first side of the story. Now he has to hear the second side of the story. And then as they continue talking, this man says, yeah, you are right. Oh, you are right. Yeah, you are right. I think you are right. So the secretary is listening and is confused. I think, yes, you are right. You are right. You are right. And then after the phone is hung, the secretary asks him, but you said you are right to both of them. Why? How can both of them be right? This man looks at the secretary and they say, you know what? You are right. No backbone to stand for that which is right. We are told, the Spirit of Prophecy tells us, in Testimonies for the Church, Volume 5, it says, the record has to be kept in mind. The record has to be kept in mind, for history will repeat itself. Sooner, very soon, the test will come to each and every one of us. The test will come to each and every one of us. The Bible, we are told again, the Testimony for the Church, Volume 5, the time is not far distant when test will come to every one of us. So at the plain of Dura, you have the 3 Hebrew boys without Daniel. And the king is convinced that now they will bow down. They are not up to 25 years of age. They are young. But we are told, when Nebuchadnezzar took the Jews captive to Babylon, he took 10,000 Jews. He took the mighty men of valor. We read that. He took those people who were people in Jerusalem. He only left the poor in Jerusalem. But where are they now? Where are they now? Where are these Adventists now? They have all went down on their knees. But somehow, I can imagine as these 3 Hebrew boys, they are standing. They look around. Maybe one Adventist might have been trying to pull Shadrach by the hem of the garment. Get down, get down. Don't play with Nebuchadnezzar, get down. After all, God sees your heart. God understands this situation. Just go to work this time on the Sabbath. God understands. God sees your heart. You are in this meeting. I mean, what will it do if you only drink this alcohol only this one time? You are with your CEO, remember. God understands you need this job. Get down on your knees. Do you think you know more, you know God better than us? Their church elder has bowed down. Where are the deacons? They're all down there. And they're trying to convince them, I can imagine, don't do this to yourself. The Sabbath school superintendent has gone down. And the choir leader also has bowed down. But these 3 Hebrew boys, they are still tending. Therefore, they're faced with the most dangerous dictator of all times. But they are standing. They know God is able to save them. They know they serve the mighty God. And that's why they are standing. They are faced with the man who has no court hearing. Once he said something, that's it. The dictator. But these 3 Hebrew boys, they know they save the righteous judge who is able to deliver them. They know and they can see and even hear the furnace heating up. But they know the God that they serve. So they stood. And as a result, the king calls them and asks them to consider this matter. And everybody in Babylon is surprised. Why is King Nebuchadnezzar asking them to consider? This is not Nebuchadnezzar. He should have thrown them away already in the furnace of fire. He said, please consider this well. The Hebrew boy says, we have made up our minds. Whether you give us 2 days or you give us 2 years, we will not change our minds. We do not have to be careful on this. And as a result, they are thrown in the lake of fire. But the Bible tells us in Daniel 3, verse 24, the Bible tells us, then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished and rose up in haste and spake and said unto his counselor, did not we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, true, O king. Verse 25. He answered and said, lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. The 4th is like the Son of God. That's Jesus. But the question is, how did Nebuchadnezzar know? How did Nebuchadnezzar know that that's Jesus right there? The spirit of prophecy tells us that these 4 Hebrew boys, including Daniel, had told so much about Jesus to Nebuchadnezzar. They had told so much about Jesus, they had reflected so much of Jesus, that when Jesus appeared in the fire, the king could say, that's the Jesus they were telling me about. He recognized Jesus and he said, that's him, that's him, that's him. We are told they came out of that furnace of fire. And the only thing that was burnt were the ropes. I wonder why only the ropes? Because in the presence of Jesus, there is nothing Babylonian that has to survive. In the presence of Jesus, only Babylonian attire and Babylonian ropes will fade away. And those ropes were burnt because they were not Jewish robes. Those were Babylonians. Some of us have tried to come to Jesus with Babylonian dresses. Some of us have tried to come to Jesus with Babylonian talks, with Babylonian food, with Babylonian whatever ways of work. There is a test that is coming ahead of us, and not far distant from now. Each and every one of us will go through the test. But there's a promise that the Lord will be with us, just like he was with the 4 Hebrew boys. The 3 Hebrew boys that went through the fire. And later on we'll see the test that comes to Daniel. Jesus knows our frame, we are told. He remembers that we are dust. And in pitying tenderness, He will give us the help and the strength we need. When reformers went through fire, they were given strength at the time of need. Some of us have desired strength, but we have not waited for the time of need. What does that mean? Strength at the time of need. Daniel went through the lion den. It's right there after he reached down, and here he is faced with the lion. At that point, Daniel needed strength, and the Lord provided strength. Reformers who were eaten by lions, they were given strength when the lions were crushing their bones. Strength at the time of need. The disciples who were martyred, like Apostle Paul, whose head was chopped off by Nero, he was given strength at the time of need to go through that. And God is promising He will give you strength at the time of need. Amen. Some of us have run away, thinking temptation is so hard, and where is this Jesus who promised to be with us in the furnace of fire? But we have not waited for the Lord to give us the strength at the time of need. And that's the faith that the Lord is calling us to have. He will never leave us nor forsake us. Oh, just remember, my brother, my sister, the Lord will give you strength you need at the time of need. The only thing we have to do is to be like these 4 Hebrew boys, telling so much about Jesus, that when they see Jesus with us in the furnace of fire, they can say, that's Him, that's Him, that's Him. Is it your desire to say, I know there's a time of trouble coming. May the Lord give me strength to endure at the time of need. Is that your desire? If that's your desire, may you stand even as we are going to have a special word of prayer.